just people always tooting their own horns or just being about a soapbox. But the idea that when you really can find, you know, actual real life feelings, instead of, you know, just the, like I say, the fantastical spectacle part of things. It's amazing, you know, because I think of some of the theater pieces that I've worked on and I've done, and film work that I've done, and, you know, the reaction of, you know, like white folks sometimes is amazing to me, because I know in reality, if it wasn't for that character or my portrayal of a certain role and the impact that I was able to make on them in the reality based, as the commonality of human spirit, and make that connection, that person probably would just pass me by. And especially at that age, because I had big hair, you know, I was, you know, real, you know, I was a rebel with 50,000 causes. So it showed in my demeanor, and I said, wow, this is powerful. You know, I got these old white women coming to me crying, like, you know, bearing themselves, like making themselves vulnerable. And that's a very thing that's hard for us to do as human beings, because, you know, the concept of human BS causes us to create these shields and these guards. So we never really get a chance to really get to know people. And I just decided at an early age that, okay, I'll do theater, and that's what I'll study, and that's what I'll major in school. But ultimately, my course in my classroom has always been life. I've always preferred that. I learn as a creative person better through example and execution versus someone just talking. So, you know. I got you. So how much music do you have out there? I got a lot of music, man. People tease me. I have a new record out that just came out called Land of the Sheep, Ran by Pigs, Ruled by Wolves. Wow. That's my current album. It's the record that I made after taking such a long break, because for the past 2 years I've been doing video work and behind the camera work and a lot of stuff like that, more for other artists and myself. As well as doing creative programming and film work for the Ben's Chili Bowl Company here in D.C. So this was a record that came back, but as I was working on it, someone like reminded me, like, yo, man, this is like your 21st album. And I was like, what? I was like, how can you have 21 albums and no one in D.C. knows me, you know? And you know, it's deep, because I learned from my father many years ago, before he passed, that, you know, this business is about, in terms of the scheme of longevity, it's about if you don't make it clear who you are, and if you don't make it clear that you're your own identity, like I'm gonna do, even though 75% of the people are talking about that particular thing or are wearing that particular thing, it's like, unless you're one of that small little 25% or 5%, it seems like nowadays, that's daring to be different, you're wasting your time ultimately, kind of. Because I think, you know, we have a horrible pattern here in America where there's only parts of history that we want to remember sometimes. And we love recreating the bad history. So I've been called things like a trendsetter. I've been called things like, you know, ahead of my time and all that, but that stuff, that does nothing to benefit me now. So I just want to know, like, when at one point when we actually have these artists like the Duke Ellingtons and like the Marvin Gayes and the Roberta Flacks and the Donny Hathaways, who actually at certain points were amongst our community, amongst our crowd, and we were able to have them and embrace them, and we don't, you know, I think we take for granted with that. So because I decided to be an artist of social change, I decided to be a black man who wanted to be an artist and still have a son and make him very present in my life and make it very clear and aware that if you want me to be a part of your business, my son has to come along too. I'm not going to lie and deny any of my identity. I'm not going to act any way that I'm not. You know, you kind of, unfortunately, your road, it's a little harder road. But the secret is catalog. That's the key. So, like, meanwhile, while, you know, here in America, maybe I'm not doing what folks are doing to stay popular per se. But meanwhile, over in Tokyo and London, there are people who still actually invest their own thought and investigate and seek out music. Who are over there stacking the crates, you know, and ultimately, you know, because I'm still a young man and I made that decision at an early age, it seems like now I'm able to now, as some of the older artists you would hear now say, yeah, now I can just sit back and just go places and sing my songs, you know. And, so yeah, I have like 21 albums. That's a combination of me solo, as well as I've written and worked with Chris Rock on his album Never Scared.
Okay.
I also did a record, 2 albums with a guy named Raheem Devon.
Right.
Together we're a group called Crossroads.
Okay.
I've worked with I'm trying to think any other collaboration wise of those records. Other than, yeah, and the rest of them are mine. They're just all solo albums that I just decided that, hey, I'm going to distribute them and put them out myself. And if people, whoever's interested, they're interested. If not, you know, they'll figure it out later.
Cool, cool.
You know.
Well, when we come back, we'll talk about your passion to help others, other artists succeed.
Definitely.
And do what they want to do. What's the next song you're going to do for us?
This song is called Postcards from the Edge. This is a song that I wrote with an artist named Eric Roberson. I wrote this when when my son was first born. For the first 2 years of his life, I did the Mr. Mom thing. I stayed home. And for those 2 years, I worked on this record called Postcards from the Edge. I wanted to make this album that basically encompass what we as artists can often allow our egos to block out, and that's the idea of like the people that are closest to us. And what can happen so often is we'll allow the perception of this business to define ourselves to the people we love. Okay. And often allow the perception of ourselves to then ultimately dictate how we are as artists, you know. Gotcha. It ain't that deep. Y'all can act like Kanye West is deep with all this, you know, him trying to basically explain him, allowing his ego to overcome him. But it ain't nothing deeper than that. It's just simply, you know, it's like anything involving discipline. It's a time and place for everything. But when we choose to act out in the wrong place, in the wrong time, we're consciously choosing to do that, you know. So anyway, that's another tantrum. That was on my mind because I saw some clip. And they're talking about it in the news right now, how, you know, he sat down and he compares himself to Jesus and compares himself to the guy who stood in front of the tank in China. I'm like, what? I was like, man, get out of here. Get out of here. Who are you fooling, man?
So the name of the song